In one of my last videos, I talked about how the CIA has been intervening in U.S. elections since at least the 1960s. They do a lot of things, but there's been a lot of dirty tricks, but there's been a lot of deletions, sadly. I talked about the JFK family, basically, not just JFK Jr., but the whole family, how they have been deleted by the CIA because once they had to delete JFK, they had to delete other members of the family. Sadly, this video talks about, this has been sent to me. It's Robert RFK Jr., RFK's son, obviously, that it's a video where he talks about how his father was deleted. It has been sent to me. We're going to check it out right now.
Okay, so let's fast forward to 1968. You're 14 years old at the time, and you're in boarding school at the Georgetown Preparatory School in Maryland. Your father, Bobby Kennedy, is running for the presidential nomination with the Democrats. And during this process, on June 5th, 1968, he was at the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles. As he was leaving the ballroom, he decided to go through the kitchen. And I guess his bodyguard, FBI agent Bill Barry, told him to avoid the kitchen because it was very crowded. As he was going through, shaking hands with everyone, a 24-year-old Palestinian man named Saran shot him with a .22 caliber revolver. He was hit 3 times. 5 other people were wounded as well. When you found out that your dad had gotten killed, what went through your mind?
Well, I didn't, first of all, I would dispute that description of what happened.
Okay.
I don't believe that Sirhan's bullets ever hit my father.
Okay.
And neither did the coroner, Thomas Noguchi, who is probably the most famous coroner in American history, who did an autopsy that is known as the perfect autopsy. He actually flew in the chief coroners of all the every branch of the military service to sit in the surgery theater to watch what he did because he knew what had happened in Dallas. And he didn't want to repeat. And what he found, Sirhan had 8 shots. He had a .22 revolver, or 8 shots in it. And he fired 2 shots at my father. One of those shots hit Paul Schrade, who was the UAW, the United Auto Workers deputy chief. There was only 2 unions that supported my father, the United Auto Workers and Cesar Chavez Union. And Paul Schrade had recruited Cesar Chavez to the United Farm Workers, so he was very close to my dad. He got shot in the head, and he was okay. And, he actually died a year and a half ago and spent the last 20 years of his life trying to get Sirhan out of prison, the man who shot him. The other shot went past my father's head and hit a door jamb behind him, and it was later removed by the LAPD. It was dug out of the door jamb. The whole door jamb was removed. He was then pounced upon by 6 men, including Rafer Johnson, who was the 1960 decathlon champion, gold medal Olympian, one of my father's closest friends, and Rosie Greer, who was one of the, fearsome foursome, who had been a bodyguard for my dad. He was, one of the most famous football players of his time. And 4 other people, including the guy who was the director or the concierge of the Ambassador Hotel. And they pounced on him. They took his hand and pointed away from my father. So they pointed the opposite direction. Rafer Johnson later told me that he tried to get the gun out of Sirhan's hand, but Sirhan had superhuman strength. He's a little tiny man. I've met him. I spent
5'5", I think.
Yeah, he's tiny. But he couldn't, this big, Rafer is like 6'4" and solid muscle. He could not get and you had a professional lineman from, the Oakland Raiders there that day. And they couldn't get it. So he fires 6 more shots in the opposite direction and empties the chamber of his gun. He's always in front of my father, by the way. My father, he's sitting on with his back to his steam table, and they bent him over the steam table, and he fired the bullets this way. As you pointed out, those bullets each hit people. So 5 people, one of them got hit twice. So if you just do the math, my father got shot 4 times from behind. And he only hit 8 bullets in his gun. He didn't reload. We know what happened the first 2, and we know what happened to the second 6. We know what happened to every one of those bullets. My father was killed from behind. He was shot 4 times. One of the shots went harmlessly through the shoulder pad of his suit. The other 3 were fatal or potentially fatal. And one of them was right behind his ear. All of them were contact shots. That's what Thomas Noguchi found, meaning the barrel of the gun was either touching his skin or his clothing and was and left a carbon tattoo, or was close enough, within an inch, close enough to leave a carbon tattoo. And the gun was being held at an upward angle. So he was shot from behind by somebody who was standing behind him with the gun pressed between the 2 of them and firing. And that man was almost certainly Eugene Thane Cesar, who was a security guard who had been hired the day before. So they already knew when he got the job, he already knew my father was going to be at that hotel. His full-time job was at the Lockheed plant. And before that, he had worked at another defense plant, which was Howard Hughes' company. And he had top security classifications at that plant. Lisa Pease, who's a researcher, has found documents where he self-identifies as a CIA agent. He ended up leaving the country. He was very outspoken against my father. He believed that my father would start a race war, and my father would put blacks in charge of the country, and he hated blacks. And he ended up leaving the country. He died about 1.5 years ago in the Philippines. Before he died, I tried to go over there and interview him. He originally said that it would cost me $10,000, but he would do it. And then when I got close to going, he said it's going to be 15. And then a day before I left, he said it's going to be 25,000. So then I thought he's playing a game.
Yeah.
And I ended up not going. But I can't prove that my father was killed by the CIA. But there's a lot of circumstantial evidence. And then,
So there you have it. This is well known. We know that the CIA was involved with the JFK assassination. We know that. We have video of the Zapruder film where one of the Secret Service agents is turning and pointing a .45 at JFK. And so that's RFK Jr. telling us what went down with his father. Is he right? He is right. There's been a lot of, that was a very quick interview. Awesome interview, by the way. Thank you, Vlad TV. They're awesome. Go check them out. That's what happened. We see that JFK was deleted, and now his brother, who was the attorney general for JFK and who was going after the mafia, and they were going to take down the CIA, suddenly his brother now is going to fight to be the president of the United States in the 1968 election. And one thing he didn't say is RFK had won the Democratic nomination that night. So the very night that it is known that he's going to be the Democratic candidate and he's going to win it all and get in the White House, he passes away through a kinetic energy weapon to the back of the head. And when we look at how that happened, we now know that he is right. There was a lot of meat that he didn't get into, but He did say that Sirhan had fired two kinetic rounds that impacted two other people, and then they grabbed him, pulled his hand back, and he fired the rest of the shots into the ceiling. So all of those shots are accounted for. Then what happens is Sirhan's in front of him, and the wounds of the kinetic energy weapon are to the back of RFK's head. And that's where this Eugene Cesar guy is. He just gets put on this thing the day before. He gets hired the day before. Before that, he worked for Lockheed, which was CIA, the Skunk Works, Howard Hughes, which was CIA. And he gets put into position the day before. And that's where the rounds came. The one thing that RFK Jr. didn't talk about is there was way more rounds that had gone off than what Sirhan had in his pistol. Actually, he got off 3 rounds that impacted people, 5 into the ceiling. That's 8 rounds. And then what happened is we've got 3 rounds into the back of RFK's head, 1 into his shoulder pad. But then we had even more rounds. There was a door. There was a in-out door for the restaurant there at the Ambassador, for the chef's area there for the kitchen, and there was 2 rounds in that. The CIA immediately took them down. Agents immediately took that down because that was going to show that there was more kinetic energy rounds around than should have been in Sirhan's gun. So, and another very interesting thing about Sirhan that he mentions that decathlons and NFL defensive backs could not get that gun out of that guy's hand. He's 5'5". He's nothing. He's 5'5", maybe 125 pounds at the most. And this guy has somehow got superhuman strength. That is a characteristic of hypnosis, somebody that's been hypnotized. If you've ever seen some of these shows that they've done, I've seen shows where a guy has hypnotized a lady and put her on the ends of top of two chairs, and this 300-pound guy stands up and stands on her. So that's a very key point that he made up there, that he talked about there, how this guy had superhuman strength. They couldn't get this thing out of his hand. And then this security guard who just got put in there the day before gets in there. Another thing that they didn't say is, RFK, because of what happened to his brother, did not want any security, and yet somehow this guy they still put security on him, even after he asked for it not to be given to him. He knew that the CIA and any security, especially the Secret Service, after what happened to his brother, could not be confided in, just like we just saw a couple months ago with the Trump attempt at deletion. Same. And we see it over and over again, the same playbook, multiple teams, different directions, make sure that it happens. We also saw that with the Trump attempt. Over and over again, they used the same playbook over and over again. So other key parts of this Sirhan thing was the famous girl in a polka dot dress. So I've read many books about this, and over again, the infamous girl in the polka dot dress. She's the one that towed Sirhan into position. When they grabbed Sirhan, that poor guy didn't know his name. He didn't know where he was at, what he was doing. He didn't know what galaxy he was on, let alone planet Earth. And I find it interesting that he talks about how this attorney tried to get Sirhan out of prison that was hit by one of his rounds. That tells you that this poor guy was totally innocent. This guy had been hypnotized, had been given all kinds of, memory erase drugs, towed into position by the infamous girl in the polka dot dress. And there were people that saw her and some other guy running away after this happened and going down the stairs. They were even laughing about it. And one of the witnesses that said that she saw this girl in the polka dot dress, she started telling everybody. And the LAPD pulled her in, and, she was there thinking that she was going to tell the police this information so that they could go find who did this, who this girl was. But instead, we know this because later the tape came out of the interrogation. It turned out to be an interrogation. Instead of them asking her and getting her information, they browbeat her and effed with her for a very long time to try to get her to change her story. And that tape eventually was produced many years ago, and you can hear him. At first, he's nice. That's not what you saw. You didn't see that. And she's adamant. Yes, I did. That's what I saw. No, that's not what you saw. Yes, it was what I saw. And but then he's starting to become more forceful. You didn't. You didn't see that. Please, for the love of God, for the good name of this man that passed away today, you've got to tell the truth. You did not see that. And at this point, this poor girl is crying. And she's saying, yes, I did. She never, ever changed her story. And what we find out is a CIA the guy gets put there a day before. And then we have LAPD guys, just like in Dallas, scrubbing up, cleaning up, and altering evidence, changing eyewitness, intimidating and threatening witnesses. So, yeah, that's what's going on with the JFK family. Go check out my Marilyn Monroe video. I talk about how he got put in. The Kennedy family was in with the mafia, but when Joe Kennedy, JFK's father, used his mafia connections to get JFK into the White House, that's when JFK went to do the right thing and pull our troops out. And that's the thing that RFK Jr. talks about later. He had signed a paper that was going to pull out the 50,000 advisors out of Vietnam. And he was going to pull out of Vietnam. He was secretly talking to Khrushchev. They had a go-between that was going between them that was giving Khrushchev's letters to JFK. The CIA wanted war. And there was hardliners in the Kremlin that also wanted war, and they were both trying to screw up this process. JFK had to go through clandestine means to get his messages to Khrushchev. He was also he did stop what they attempted to do in Cuba. So he was making friends with all of these guys, and he was destroying the CIA. He was going to bounce Hoover out. It's very interesting to think about how the world would have been so different if JFK had lived. And then what happened is the CIA continued to persecute the JFK family because they kept trying to get into power, and the CIA knew that if that ever happened, that their goose was cooked. And so they deleted JFK, they deleted RFK, they attempted to delete Edward Kennedy. Edward was in a plane crash, broke his back, but then what they did is they pulled some shenanigans. He was in some type of car accident, and a staffer he was most likely having an affair with ended up passing away in that thing. And that was weird. He wasn't at the car and all that kind of stuff. And then after that, he was doing whatever he was told. And then when JFK Jr. attempted to get a senator spot, he would have easily won, which Hillary Clinton took, by the way. He would have easily won, and they would have been clamoring for him to get into the White House. So the CIA has been on cleanup duty ever since the JFK deletion, 63. We're talking 60, 70 years. They're still doing the thing. And as a matter of fact, there was military intelligence groups that were out there talking about how when Trump was going to do his first address. The CNN, the CIA News Network, and all the major networks are ready to cut his feed because they all thought that he was going to bring the JFK files into light, but he did not. And there's some very interesting stuff going on with JFK Jr. Supposedly he passed away in an airplane crash, but there's speculation that there's something going on with that. That would be very interesting. And so now the CIA has another problem right now. They've got Trump and RFK Jr. heading in the direction that they don't want him to go. That's why the attempted deletion of Trump a couple of months ago, and that is why they have pulled RFK's Secret Service detail away. I think it would be a nice move for Trump to switch out Vance for RFK and put him in the vice presidency deal, and campaign on that ticket. So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this quick video, and we will see you on the next Ultra Top Secret.